Hello, Mike. Can you help us to introduce you for this interview?
Sure. My name is Mike Stump. I am currently a career coach in the Easton Center at Spears. Prior to that, I was a human resources professional for 35 plus years. And almost all of that, I was a manager of people reporting to me.
Okay, thank you, Mike. The first question for you is, as a student, were you the kind of person to lead group projects?
So when I was a student here at OSU, okay, is that what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably not as much, not consistently. I would say at that time, probably wasn't always the first person to step up to volunteer to lead in that situation. I would say later on, as I got into work and business, then I developed more of a confidence in myself to do that. So probably not as much as a student, though.
Okay, I understand. Sometimes happen. Okay, the next question is, how did your career lead you to management? Is it something that you pursue or did it surprise you?
Yeah, that's interesting because like as I was graduating and looking for a job, that was in 1982, there was a recession. And so to find even entry level like HR professional jobs, there were not very many. So my first job when I graduated was into a management trainee position. And so the company that I went to work for almost 2 years, I worked my way through a management trainee position where like every 6 months I assumed more responsibility and managed more people and had a larger scope of managing the business too. And so it was one of those things when it happened at the time that, I thought, I was disappointed that I wasn't able to start in HR, but then this company allowed me to move over into an HR position after I'd gone through that program. And as it turned out, it was the best thing that ever could have happened to me because I learned how to manage a business and I learned how to supervise people and lead people before I got into HR. And then, so once I got into HR, my first couple of jobs, I was an individual contributor. I didn't manage people. But then very quickly, within the matter of probably about 3 years, I became an HR manager. And I doubt that I probably would have been able to do that had I not taken that path where I learned to be a manager first. And it also helped me to be a much better HR manager because I understood from the very get-go what managers face and how difficult of a job that is. But I also was able to know what to expect of them too, because I had done their job.
Oh my God, that's really interesting.
Mhm.
Back home, we have a say that you cannot manage people if you don't know how to do the work. So you have the chance to do the work first and then manage people. So not that bad
Exactly.
for a first.
Yeah, in the big picture, I was really very fortunate that things happened that way. So it was turned out to be a blessing for sure.
Okay, lucky you. So next question. Um, this is more about your experience. How do you handle different personalities in the workplace? And I'm pretty sure that you have a bunch of experience of that.
Yes, yes. You know, I would say kind of some of the basis for how I learned to do that was a training and development program that I went through pretty early on, which was called situational leadership. And just to real briefly describe it, it taught you to understand, the differences in the way people approach their jobs and what they value, and that it's not really practical to be able to expect to have one leadership style that you use on every single person that you work with. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me too, because you just, I always thought, if I do what I do and I do it the right way, everybody should respond, the same. And it doesn't work that way. So you have to be able to understand and get to know those people and understand what they value, what's important to them. Some people need more supervision than others, and some people detest that, right? Some people want to be independent, and others need to be able to come and ask you questions consistently and need you to reinforce what they're doing along the way. And so that's really the approach that I took, was, getting to, especially the people that work directly for you, it's much easier then, because you work with them every day and you understand how they're wired and what's important. And so just understanding that and then applying that, remembering to apply it in all those situations that you have with those individuals, that helped me a lot for sure.
Okay, thank you, Mike. The next question is, how do you motivate your employees?
Sure. I think, some of it has to do with kind of what we just talked about, which is, getting an understanding of what motivates them first, to be able to understand that, and how they like to be recognized, right? Whether they want to be recognized, in front of everybody else, or, sometimes that embarrasses people. So just understanding that and then applying that approach to them. But, primarily what I found, some people are motivated to get to positions, some people are motivated to make more money. But in the end, I would say, 90% of the people that have worked for me, if you communicate with them consistently about what they're doing well and how they can get better in the areas, those, to me, that's the best way to motivate people, because they know that you have a vested interest in how they're doing and what they can do to get better. And when you're doing that to me always, those people wanted to do better, whether it was for you or for themselves, honestly, it doesn't matter, but they were motivated to get better.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Mike. And so we are heading to the other question. How do you manage an unprecedented situation like a pandemic? I don't know if in all the years that you have been working, you have faced something like the pandemic or like a difficult situation, and how do you handle with people, like in the past or maybe in this time? I don't know.
Yeah. I would not have been a manager during, the current pandemic, or I can't really think of anything from a health situation like that
Okay.
is similar. The only thing I can think of where really managing through a difficult situation was the times that I had to, as a leader, be part of something that had a negative effect on the workforce. Like, I managed through a plant closure where we had to tell everybody, essentially they weren't, our people weren't doing anything wrong. It was a business decision to shut down our plant and move that operation because we were a small plant. So, that was like a 3 or 4 month process, and that was difficult. So, and then other large layoffs, reduction in force, those are difficult. And, the only thing I can tell you with respect to those is just that you have to over communicate with people because, when they're impact, and I was too. I mean, I was essentially at the end of that process. I lost my job when we shut the plant down. And so, you just want to communicate to people as much as you can because they're going through a difficult situation. They're frustrated, they're scared. And so lack of information is the worst possible thing because then they start to make up things, right? Create. And so that, and just having a lot of empathy for people who are in that situation, make sure that you're treating them with respect because that's a difficult time for anybody to go through.
Yeah,
So
I truly understand that more information that you can give to people, the better to make them feel like there is nothing wrong with them, it's just
right.
the situation, the economic situation, management decision, and it's nothing related to their performance or something like that. So, okay,
Exactly.
thank you. For you, what are some of the most prevalent ways that people fail as managers?
Say that again. What are some of the most what?
Prevalent or prevalent
Prevalent.
okay,
Okay. Ways
ways
that,
that people fail as managers.
yeah. I could probably rattle off a long list of those that I've seen. Wow. Let me see if I can narrow that down to what I think are probably the two or three most common things that cause people. Um, I would say just probably the number one thing is just when if a leader fails to treat the people that work for them with respect, if they don't show them the respect for what they're doing in their jobs and what their challenges are. In other words, if they're just looking at the big picture of the end result and they don't have empathy for how the people that work for them contribute to that, to me, I think people will see that very quickly, and that's probably the number one thing that will demotivate somebody and cause them to not want to work for that leader, and in all likelihood go somewhere else. So that would be probably number one. I think the other thing is, and this may sound odd, but you have to to be successful, you have to have a good balance of holding people accountable, like
Okay.
setting high expectations for people,
Okay.
and then consistently, communicating to people that, recognizing when they do a good job. And if you create that balance between those two, um, I think most people will work very hard for you and respect you. Like if you have people on your team who are not contributing and not doing their job, or they're not treating other people right, and you fail to address that, that creates issues for the people who are doing things the right way. And a lot of people get into leadership jobs, and unfortunately, they're good at telling you what you do well, but they have a hard time confronting someone to talk about, poor performance or poor behavior. So that's probably number two. In fact, those are probably the two biggest when I think about it. Those are when I look back on my career and all the people that I had to train and coach and develop, those are probably the two biggest things that cause people to fail. And sometimes people are, sometimes just people end up in those jobs because they are great individual contributors, and they're a lot of them are very bright too. But if they don't understand kind of those two aspects, they're in most cases will fail.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I'm just going to do a wrap up. This is the last question.
Okay.
And how do you know when an employee is satisfied with his job?
um, I think there's lots of ways to try to figure that out, by just employee surveys and
But for you, like
for me, yeah,
your personal experience.
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy because when I look back over the time, the people that worked for me, I mean, I knew that because of two things. I would say a lot of people will share that with you. I mean, they will tell you that, that one, hey, I enjoy working for you, or I enjoy working here, or I enjoy working with this team, that you've built. And so I think a lot of people will just tell you that. And I had a lot of people on my team tell me that, which makes you feel good. And the other it's just is by looking at what happens within the retention of your team, and people that, when you build that team, because there's lots of other opportunities, for people to go and do things outside the organization or even within, sometimes. And so when you have that stability, but yet you're still able to give people opportunities to grow within what they're doing or taking a step up when that opportunity is there, then I think those are two pretty big indicators for me anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense completely for me. So thank you for sharing your experience with me. I will stop the recording.
Okay.